All right, were you taken advantage of, cheated on? It's hard to trust sometimes in relationships. So how do you get over trust issues to move along to have a loving and committed relationship? Here with ways to get over our trust issues is marriage and family therapist Amy Hachquet. Amy, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Do you see that in your line of work as one of the biggest, hurdles towards a good and healthy relationship?
Absolutely. The ability to trust actually comes quite naturally and early for most of us. But then life happens and we get burned. And then our relationship landscape totally changes. Our defenses are up, our guard is up, and then, you can even begin looking for signs of dishonesty or untrustworthiness in others when it may not actually even pair with our reality. So if you feel like you're never going to be able to trust again, there is hope, but it's definitely time for some self-reflection.
Okay, so what would your advice be? Because I know if people have had prior relationships where they were cheated on or their partner wasn't very trustworthy, they carry that into. So what would be your first tip?
Be discerning rather than suspicious. So pay attention to those gut feelings because they can tell us a lot. But at the same time, you need to leave room for critical analysis as a part of your overall outlook on life. So if something feels off to you, take a step back, change your approach. Instead of being defensive or aggressive or assertive with the person that you're concerned about, take a step back, hang on to that anxiety a little longer, make sure that the evidence matches up with your feelings.
And also, don't you think, too, I have a friend who always thinks her husband's being unfaithful and is suspicious of every little thing and goes to him with everything. Don't you think it's important to maybe, because that can also damage the relationship if the person is being faithful. So, like you said, be suspicious, trust your gut, but not act on everything, possibly?
Exactly. Going after someone when there's no grounds and no one's guilty can cause its own kind of damage. So you want to be really careful with that.
And maybe push that person out the door if they weren't already, right?
Right,
What's another tip for you, how to trust?
So decide whether you're actually prepared to trust or distrust life. Examine the wider consequences of going through life and constantly feeling suspicious, disappointed. It's not a fun way to live. And so surround yourself with trustworthy people, put yourself in trustworthy, reliable situations, and know those red flags. Who are the toxic people in your life, and steer clear.
And once people have shown you a few times what their true colors are, maybe it's time as a friend or a boyfriend to cut them out, right?
Exactly, and examine that track record. When you go into a relationship with someone, find out, what is their relationship history? What is their character like? Integrity, it matters.
And trust isn't also just about cheating. It's about just those little things that a person, means what they say and say what they do, right?
Absolutely.
So what's other advice on how to become more trusting and get over these issues?
So take the time to heal. Carefully chronicle the distrust issues from your previous relationship because you don't want to take that emotional baggage into your next relationship. So it's really important to take that time. I will say, as a therapist, I think it's very challenging for people in general to make a clear break from relationship to relationship. We take our life experiences with us. So just take that time to heal, do the best that you can, know what your triggers are. If you're easily anxious by someone who's always on their phone, for example, maybe you were burned in a past relationship due to some type of unfaithfulness regarding cell phones, and your new partner is pulling their phone out a lot. They're doing a lot of work on their phone. Let them know so they can reassure you that everything is okay.
Do you support maybe giving each other's passwords to each other? Or should we be allowed privacy? Should I trust you enough that we don't have to look at each other's email or the phones?
Case by case basis, tread lightly with that. An open policy is sometimes nice, but it's also nice to know that the other person trusts you and that you trust them.
Because sometimes the most harmless things can seem inappropriate, but you're like, that was like, nothing, So, okay, well, wonderful. Because, like you said, it's one of the biggest issues you see in marriages, but also people trying to get to that point to have a long-term relationship, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And lastly, don't make the same mistake twice. So unfortunately, we often enter into relationships with similar patterns, similar people, because we're trying to tame or change that person. Freud called this repetition compulsion. So an example of that would be exiting a relationship with someone who was unfaithful and then entering a new romance with someone who has a wandering eye, right? We all know where that's going to end.
Absolutely, especially if you cheat with somebody and then think they're going to be faithful to you. That's kind of a bad pattern to start too. I know. I always think that's like silly. All right, Amy, thank you so much.
You're
really
welcome.
Important. All right, Monica, over to you.
Cheaters never prosper. What you do in the dark gonna come to the light. Words of wisdom from my grandmother. Thanks, ladies. Okay, hey, so if you're in the mood for a staycation at Casino Hotel and Spa,